Hello, BookTube. I've got some new arrivals for you, a stack of new things that are either out already or are coming out this month. There are a few of them, I think, that are coming out down the line. Quite a few without pub sheets, so we'll be working without a net. And once again, there is what I hope is a gentle humming in the background. That is the little AC unit for this little book room, which does such heroic work that I feel a little guilty saying it's too loud. None of you have really mentioned it. So I'm hoping that the microphone here is picking up proximal sound better than distant sound. But there's quite a few things here, a stack of new releases that I thought we'd go through because I never know what's going to interest you more than it interests me. And it'd be a good thing for you to have these things on your radar. We'll see what we can do for dates on a lot of these, but I don't know how easy that will be. Like, for instance, this next one is from Tens and Hudson. It doesn't have a pub sheet, but this is the finished copy. It's a $17 paperback. It's edited by John Julius Norwich, who a lot of you will know for his 3-volume history of Venice. And it's called Cities That Shaped the Ancient World. Just a simple classic design here in which he gets together a table of contents of classical historians to write about famous cities from the ancient world. So we've got Uruk and Troy and Babylon and Nineveh, Persepolis, Jerusalem, Petra, Ephesus, Palmyra. The only name I really know here is Bettany Hughes, who writes about Troy in this volume. It's just each one is like a 20 or 30 page essay. I know Bettany Hughes because she wrote a very good book about 5th century Athens. So if this is the sort of, this is a keyhole history, a bite-sized history, if this is the sort of thing that appeals to you, then, it's coming out. Since this is a finished copy, I guess we can assume that it'll be out soon. This next one is not, though. This next one is coming out in September. I wanted to show it to you and put it on your radar in case some of you out there are as big a fan of this series as I am. This is a Captain Billy Boyle novel. These are by James Benn. This one is called From the Shadows. They all have this distinctive cover art style. And these are set during World War II. What have we got here? I think this doesn't have a sheet on it, but at least it does tell me it's September. This one is set in southern France in 1944. We've been following Captain Billy Boyle for the whole of the war. What should be a simple assignment with a special operations executive, that's SOE, officer, gets complicated quickly as Billy navigates the tensions between resistance groups in the process of gathering information on Vichy officials and other collaborators who escaped with the retreating Germans. And these really snap. I mean, there are other ongoing murder mystery series that take place around this time, obviously. I mean, Maisie Dobbs would be one. But these have they're a little bit more action-oriented, and they are also a little bit more procedure-oriented. Billy Boyle is not a renegade from his own armed ranks. He is instead a serving member of the military, so it adds a flavor to these things. Coming out, a historical murder mystery for you. This next one, disturbing subject matter. We do have a pub sheet for this one. This comes out, I think, in November. This comes out in mid-November. It's by Adam Rutherford, and it's called Control: The Dark History and Troubling Present of Eugenics. And that's the cover illustration. Oh my. And I think, if I remember correctly, the pub sheet goes straight for topicality. We'll just have to forgive it that. The recent mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, has prompted a flood of commentary about the Great Replacement theory, both its origins and its latest incarnation. Many people have rightly pointed out that this theory relies on a particular combination of racism, anti-Semitism, and economic anxiety that has existed in this country for centuries. The slogan, "Make America Great Again," can be interpreted as the direct descendant of writings that influenced the thinking of such titans of industry as Ford and Rockefeller, bolstered support for Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany, and even found their way into popular novels. And the character of Tom Buchanan in The Great Gatsby parrots the popular view that if we don't look out for the white race, we'll be utterly submerged. And reassures the narrator of the book that it's all scientific stuff. It's been proved. And this book, let's see here, delivers a comprehensive and sobering account of the eugenics movement and connects the dots between adherents of the Great Replacement theory and those who were and are convinced that the way to build the future in which they wish to live involves re-engineering human biology to achieve white supremacy. So this comes out in mid-November. It's going to be grim reading, especially considering what's going to happen in this country in early November. I would quibble with that was a very good pub sheet. I would quibble with it in only one little detail. The Great Replacement theory is not partly anti-Semitic. It's entirely anti-Semitic. It doesn't matter who the nut jobs who forward this kind of stuff think the foot soldiers are, who are flooding your borders and whatnot and replacing you in that job that you covet so well, cleaning the grease traps at Taco Bell. It's not so much who the foot soldiers are. The Great Replacement theory is the same as every other theory, just like it, off the assembly line, in who the puppeteer is. It doesn't matter who the foot soldiers are. The puppeteer is George Soros. That is the alt-right and the MAGA world shorthand for all Jews. If someone says George Soros, they have no idea who he is. They couldn't pick him out of a police lineup. They have no idea what he does. He has become a name, a shorthand, an Alex Jones type sigil for Jews. Because even some of the worst bigots in an America completely emboldened to embrace bigotry and getting ready to make it a national pastime, even those people are kind of sort of aware that they shouldn't just name the Jews. So they name George Soros instead. But other than that, I will gobble it up when the time comes. Then this next one I will also have a pub sheet for this one, and it has some odd superlatives attached to it. Superlatives I don't really know what to do with. This is by Nicholas Ferraro. It's translated from the Spanish by Mallory Craig Kuhn, and I believe this is the first book by this author that's translated into English. This is called Cruz, a novel called Cruz. And it comes out in early October. And it's set in northern Argentina during the Christmas season. Let's see here. Tomas Cruz swore he would never be like his father, an abusive cocaine junkie whose gangland exploits are notorious throughout the underbelly of northern Argentina. When Samuel Cruz is sentenced to 13 years in prison, he leaves a laundry list of unfinished cartel business. Seba, Tomas's revered older brother, has no choice but to abandon his straight life and take over his father's underworld debt. Now, 15 years have passed, Seba has been arrested, and the ruthless cartel boss is holding his wife and daughter as collateral. Just in time for the holidays. Tomas is forced to choose between protecting his family and his soul as he assumes the to-do list where Seba left off. On a bloody quest for underworld justice that will take him to realms murkier than the depths of the Paraná River, Tomas discovers himself capable of violence he never thought possible. And the blurbs continually evoke Don Winslow, who says that he has retired from novel writing in order to devote himself full-time to anti-Trumpism, to the de-Trumpification of the country. And the reason why the blurbs are a little odd is because they often refer to Don Winslow as last year's model. Where can I find? There's a ton of blurbs on this thing, and the blurbs always mention that this is just like Don Winslow, only more empathetic and better written. I will not know that. I will not know if that is true because I'm dealing with this through a translator, so I won't be able to comment on that. Yeah, one blurb writer writes, Cruz is a Don Winslow book, but with more soul and melancholy. That's a little odd. I mean, yes, Don Winslow is never going to write another novel, so we only have his current extant work to go off. But I think there's plenty of poetry and melancholy in his works. But the next thing that we have is YA, a YA novel, and it has the kind of sketched over Instagram photo cover artwork that has become all the rage in YA novels. I don't know if I have a pub sheet for this. No, I don't. This is by Rachel Vincent, and it's called No One Is Alone. You've got apathetic teenagers in front of lockers, so you can guess a lot of what's coming. But this one does have a little bit of a twist. Michaela is a junior in high school living with her single mom. Her dad lives only a few towns away, and she only sees him on holidays and birthdays. They barely know each other, but Michaela is so close with her mom that she's never minded. That is, until her mom dies suddenly, and Michaela has to move in with her dad, who reveals he's been married with the kids all this time, and she herself is the product of an affair. Before she can even grieve her mother, Michaela is thrust into a strange house with a stepmom and 3 half-siblings, including her new sister Emery, who is less than thrilled at the prospect of sharing her room. Especially when they both try out for the school musical, and Emery's theater star ex-boyfriend suddenly seems interested in Michaela. So for a while there, at the beginning of that Dust Jacket flap, you were thinking, okay, this is just a real novel that stars teenagers instead of adults. Instead of apathetic 20-year-olds, you've got apathetic 16-year-olds. And then it swerves into being a YA novel because they're going out for the same musical, and oh my god, her ex-boyfriend, and oh my god, what's going to happen? It's the setup is plenty good enough for a really affecting novel, and this might end up being one. But the author, Rachel Vincent, does not trust the setup, no matter how good it is. That her mother suddenly dies. They were best friends. She has to live with a father she doesn't know, and learns out right away that she's not even who she thought she was, and has siblings. That is a novel on its own. And if you were a YA novelist who trusted her audience, whether it was a YA novelist who trusted her audience would write that novel instead of throwing in shenanigans. And, I'm sure there'll be text messages and whatnot. But it could still be really good. The first part of it, anyway, especially could be. Then we have another Thames and Hudson book. This, I don't think, has a pub sheet. No, it does not. This is by Alan Turnbull, and it is well illustrated, and it's called Who Shot Van Gogh? And no matter what any of you might be hearing from Deb, it wasn't me. But we don't need a pub sheet. We'll just go straight into this thing. Van Gogh is one of the most famous artists in the world. Yet our understanding of his life is full of contradictions. Art historians, filmmakers, journalists, psychologists, and conspiracy theorists have offered theories on his life and work, but their views are often poles apart. He has been described as a suffering genius, a madman, the embodiment of peace and compassion, a man of violence who was a danger to himself and others, a religious fanatic, and a Marxist. Where does the truth lie and the myth begin? As an artist himself, Alan Turnbull traces the continual rewriting of Van Gogh's story since the first publications on the artist appeared at the beginning of the 20th century. Presenting a collage of succinct facts and counterfacts, the text is drawn from a wide field of sources: fellow artists, friends and family, doctors and psychoanalysts, actors and writers, theorists, crackpots, and scholars. I wonder where Alan Turnbull falls on that spectrum. So this is not quite a Van Gogh biography. I can't help but when we get all those conflicting descriptions of who Van Gogh was and what he was, I can't help but think about one of my favorite little sequences from Doctor Who. You Whovians will already know the sequence that I'm talking about. It involves Van Gogh. And it's a rare instance. I am on record as saying that I do not like the boy doctors. I do not like a doctor who is also, 20. I guess it could be done well. Think about, for instance, the Umbrella Academy, the show, the show adaptation of the Umbrella Academy. The conception there of number 5, the little kid number 5, who's not little, I guess. The actor is probably a 30-something cokehead. That would work. That kind of precocious, obnoxious genius would work as a boy doctor, but not a teen heartthrob doctor. And there were 2 in a row. So I don't have a lot of patience with either one of those iterations, both of whom are enormously beloved, universal fan favorites among doctor iterations. But nevertheless, the sequence that I'm talking about with Van Gogh is amazing. I'll try to remember to leave a link to it down below. It doesn't take more than a few minutes to watch. Then this next one we do have a pub sheet for, but it doesn't need one. This is written by Janet Voigt and illustrated by Peggy McNamara. And it is From the Seashore to the Seafloor. And it's an odd-sized book, first of all. It's rectangular. And it's full of paintings that take you... There's paintings, but there's also lots and lots of text. Because we go from sandy shores and rocky shores to the shallows offshore to the continental shelf, with reefs and the change in temperature and the change in life, and then into the depths of the ocean, all the way to the floor of some of the deepest parts of the world. all with these charming illustrations. But we have a sheet, so let's go through this. This came out in mid-June. Let's see here. With accessible scientific descriptions, the author introduces the animals that inhabit rocky and sandy shores, explains the fragility of coral reefs, and honors the extraordinary creatures that must search for food in the ocean's depths, where light and heat are rare. These fascinating insights are accompanied by McNamara's stunning watercolors, which illuminate these ecosystems and other scenes from the author's research. Together they show connections between life at every depth and warn of the threats these beguiling places and their eccentric denizens face. So this is only fewer than 150 pages, but I know that it will be a delight. I don't know how much meat it will have on the bones. That's sometimes the first thing you sacrifice, but I know that I will love it, and it's out already, so if it looks like something that you want, or maybe a keepsake for that ocean-obsessed person on your list, you now know this is from Seashore to Seafloor, and is out there and available. This is by University of Chicago Press. Then we have a novel. I guess you could call this a climate change novel. We'll see. This is by Bruce Holzinger, and it's called The Displacements. And we have a pub sheet for this as well. Fairly pretty thing. You've got storm-tossed palm trees there, and that foreshadows the plot. Where have we got the plot here? Well, we don't appear to have the plot. Well, that's all right. We have this instead. To all appearances, the Larson Hall family has everything. Healthy children, a stable marriage, a lucrative career for Brantley, and the means for Daphne to pursue her art full-time. Their deluxe new Miami life has just clicked into place when Luna, the world's first Category 6 hurricane, overturns everything they have taken for granted. When the storm makes landfall, it triggers a descent of another sort. Their home is destroyed, 2 of their members are missing, and their finances abruptly are cut off. The family finds that everything they assumed about their lives is now up for grabs. Swept into a mass rush of evacuees from across the American South, they are transported hundreds of miles to a FEMA mega shelter where their new community includes an insurance agent turned drug dealer, a group of vulnerable children, and a dedicated relief worker trying to keep the peace. Will normal ever return? So on one level, a family study, a novel about a family in distress, a family broken apart and wondering if they can ever get back together again. But the reason for it, the trigger for it, is because they are climate change refugees. We had a book on that subject just a couple of weeks ago about how ubiquitous that is going to become, how people are not going to be able to stay where they live for one reason or another because of unprecedented climate change. The world's first Category 6 hurricane. I can't even imagine what that would be like. It wouldn't leave any buildings standing. Then let's see here. This next one, a bit of an oddity. I don't know if we've seen this already, and I don't know what I will make of it. But I'll give it a try. I will go into it with an open mind. This is by Philip Ball, and it's called The Book of Minds: How to Understand Ourselves and Other Beings, from Animals to AI to Aliens. And here, according to the pub sheet, we have Ball at his best. This comes out in mid-July. This comes out in a week. The science is wide-ranging, simply and eloquently explained, and the implications are huge. Ball's premise is that minds aren't all-or-nothing entities, but matters of degree. Almost there. You're almost right. The only reason you would say it's matters of degree is because you know you have all the degrees. You're almost there. He doesn't think it's helpful to ask if something has a mind or not. Rather, it is much more productive to ask how much and what kinds of qualities of mind. The author explores dimensions of mind like agency, memory, sense of self, temporal awareness, and more, using creatures with different concentrations of these qualities, from the much studied, like the octopus, to the human mind, but fully considers the space of all possible minds, from AI to aliens, and even the combination of the two. But what sets this book apart is not just up-to-date science, it is also its scope and depth, going beyond neuroscience to philosophy, religion, and animal studies. In this fascinating panorama of current views about the nature and existence of minds, we come to know our own better. So this is right around the corner. I haven't read it yet, so it'll go right on my list. And we will see. I have no idea what that business about religion is. I'm hoping that means there's a section in the book that studies the minds of dedicated religious people. I'm really hoping that the book does not try to analyze the mind of gods, since that would not be scientific. There is no data at all. But we shall see. This next one is epic fantasy. Do I have a sheet for this? Yes, I do. Although I don't know how much good it's going to do us. This comes out today. This is out today. This is Raymond Feist. A lot of you will be big Raymond Feist fans. And this is the third and final book in the Firemane saga of his. So those of you who've been following along, this is out today to finish up the series. This is called Master of Furies, with a fairly evocative cover there. Furies are the kind of electromagnetic magical ley lines that run throughout the fantasy world here. And one of the main characters has an inborn ability to sense those lines and maybe even to manipulate them. He's got to learn how to use this power, and the clock is ticking. If he doesn't learn how to use them, then the side he's on has no hope. I don't know if how much this is going to tell us about any of that. Yeah, the pub sheet isn't going to make any sense at all. If you don't know these books, it's not going to make any sense at all. But that is what I haven't read this yet. I will read this tonight. That is what I imagine will be the gist of the plot. Will be can one of the main characters master the only thing that can save the world in time to do it, which is kind of refreshing in its own right. Right? There's way too much of instant mastery of these supernatural forces. Think of for instance, Star Wars, the new Star Wars. Rey in the new Star Wars is a supreme force lightning grand Jedi master with no training whatsoever. And that happens a lot in fantasy novels and also in fantasy TV. So I'm hoping that that has been a pretty good element of the previous 2 volumes in this series. This did not need to be a trilogy. It is 1 volume. It's just that Raymond Feist knows which side of the lembus is buttered on. So he will generate a trilogy from a book. But this didn't need to be a trilogy. It's taken way, way too long to mature these plot lines. But they come to a head in this book. Then we have a couple of kids' picture books that I wanted to alert you to, those of you who know these things and like them. The first one is by, now I should know this, Ian Falconer, who did the Olivia books. If you are a parent of a young kid, you have probably read an Olivia book to them. This one's much more along Steve's line. This is 2 dogs. There are 2 dachshunds. And they live in the house all day long. The book doesn't condemn. I do, but the book doesn't. The book introduces them and then says that when they were puppies, they were played with all the time, but that now their owner leaves them alone all day long to go to work. Which, I won't read a darker subtext into this, and of course if you're reading this to kids, you shouldn't either, but that means the owner shouldn't have got the dogs. But over the years, the children have gone off to school, the parents were at work, so like many other dogs, they were left alone all day, most days, and they were bored. That is true, and you can die on the inside from boredom. They decide to go on an adventure. They ask the fated question, how can we open the door to get to the backyard? And one thing I want to show you that's kind of interesting about the backyard is that Falconer makes it photo. It's a photo of a backyard with cartoons in the foreground. I don't quite know why, but I think it kind of works. And they get away with it. So it was a dog-related kids book, and so is the next one. The next one hit mighty close to home. This is by Drew Brockington, and it's called Puppy Bus. I don't think I have a sheet for either one of these. Oh no, I do have a sheet for this. When does this come out? July 12th. So this comes out next week. And this is the story of a little boy. His parents have just moved into town, and he has to go to a new school. This is the worst. He doesn't want to go to a new school. He doesn't want. He feels awkward and alone. Feels like everything around him is strange, and that is the deeper point of this book. The book's a lot of fun, but the deeper point is that it'll be okay. You'll like it. You'll end up liking it. It's a book about starting a new school. But in this particular case, because of this book, it turns out that it's not just any school. He's gotten on the wrong bus. Wait a minute. I'm on the wrong bus. He's on the bus to puppy school. And that's exactly where he goes. He goes to puppy school, where you get into the classroom through the doggy door. And he learns how to roll over. He learns how to speak. Woof plus woof equals woof. He learns how to eat. I don't see why he's objecting to this. Looks delicious. Notice the food pyramid is all bones. He learns all of these things and discovers that he really likes it, that he really enjoys puppy school. So he is perfectly happy when he gets back home to his mother and father. Now, in 2022, for a kid's book or any other book, but especially a kid's book, because that's the front lines of indoctrination, for a kid's book to have parents who are a man and a woman is, if you go by blue check marks on Twitter, a crime equally as bad as the Nazi Holocaust. The two things are equally bad. And the author and artist must know that, because they go out of their way to make sure you know that the man in the family doesn't have any testicles. Just so you know, he's probably not the sperm donor involved at all. And how do we know that? Because the family sits down to sushi. That's how we know that. Very specific detail. And of course, the boy is happy to go back to school. His apprehensions have vanished completely. He's happy to go back to his new school until he realizes that he's once again boarded the wrong bus, and this bus is not to a pleasant place. Dun, dun, dun. So that is going to please your little one, whether they have a fancy for dogs or a fancy for cats. And then the last book that we'll look at here is the follow-up to something we've already seen on this channel. It's an oversized illustrated thing. Is this also from Thames and Hudson? No, this is Chronicle Books. This is by Edward Brooke Hitching, and it is The Devil's Atlas, an oversized thing called The Devil's Atlas. And it's a tour through afterlives. All the afterlives that are documented in human existence. He did his previous book was on a tour of imaginary lands, and this one is I guess you have to make that distinction, especially in America. But I want to point out, this is still a tour of imaginary lands. These places don't exist. They are works of fiction. So this is elaborately illustrated, and you go through everything. The hells of the Near East, the hells of ancient Mesopotamian mythology, concepts like purgatory and limbo that were once the psychological ruin of millions of people's peace of mind and are now discarded, just completely discarded. There's a whole chapter on Dante. There's a whole chapter on the Divine Comedy, and because of course Dante, is the cartographer of hell, and lots of illustrations. You have period illustrations, enlarged and well produced, and also religious illustrations throughout. Gustave Doré is in here for some of his pictures from the Bible. Got William Blake all throughout here. A fascinating thing, a fascinating study. This author's credit in the Bank of Steve is very good, because his last book, what was the name of the last one? The Phantom Atlas was the last one. That was the one that I think we saw on this channel, and it was quite good. So there you go. Let's try a Steve pyramid. We have the Devil's Atlas, the hell or heaven of your choosing. We have Puppy Bus. We have two dogs, so that's two kids' picture books. Let's see here. We have Master of the Furies. So is our main character going to become the title, the Master of the Furies? Is he or is he not? We have the Book of Minds, study of how minds work. That sounds a lot less prejudicial than they usually are. The Displacements, a family is blown off course by the world's first Category 6 hurricane. Then we have From the Seashore to the Seafloor, a neat little illustrated book about ocean life. Who Shot Van Gogh, kind of an incidental, vignette by vignette biography of Vincent van Gogh. No One is Alone, a YA novel that I think we said is out already. Cruz by Nicholas Ferraro, his first book translated into English. Not his first novel, I don't think. Control, forthcoming this autumn, about eugenics. From the Shadows, a Captain Billy Boyle novel. Those of you who know this series will be looking forward to it. And finally, Cities That Shaped the Ancient World by John Julius Norwich. Well, edited by him, not written by him. As far as I can remember, he doesn't have a chapter in here, I don't think, which is kind of weird. Could that be true? Editors never do that. There's no such thing as a self-effacing editor anymore. Oh, no. I was wrong. Bettany Hughes also does a book on Mycenae and Athens. She does a chapter on Athens. How wonderful. That's fantastic. I'll go straight to that. But no, John Julius Norwich does not have a chapter in here. He just edits it, maybe with an introduction. So there you go. There are some new releases for you. All over the map, as usual with this channel, and we'll see, if any of these things interest you. Some of them I have read, some of them I have not. A couple of them are on the list for tonight. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Those are new releases to carry us through until tomorrow. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.